morning. It is 8:01 a.m. and I'm calling the meeting of the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors to order. Our meeting notice was posted timely, and we have a quorum. Just to note, Ms. Burgess will not be here this morning. All right, we're going to start off with our pledges to our great country and our very great state. And Alan, our Director Alan, would you lead us in that?
With pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. And actually, no, it's fine. We had arranged for an invocation this morning. We're going to still do an invocation. It's kind of an interesting story. This person was scheduled to do the invocation 2 meetings ago, got sick, substituted somebody else. Then they were scheduled to come this time, and apparently they got tied up. So I have asked our director, Rich Diott, to lead us in an invocation.
Heavenly Father, I ask for your presence with us today. Help us to speak and act in a manner worthy of your presence and to honor you with everything that we say. I pray that you bless our friendships, the judgments of our meeting, that you would be exalted, and that what we do today is pleasing in your sight. And I ask that you would empower us. I pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So we're about to have our public hearing. I want to wish our entire audience good morning. Appreciate y'all taking the time to be here. I know you could be someplace else, but you are interested in TAD and you share that interest with us, and we do appreciate it. Let me make a note of this. This is a called meeting, what we refer to as a called meeting rather than a standard meeting. We have 7 standard meetings on our calendar. They're out there in public. It's on our website. But we called this meeting for a special purpose. We have to get something accomplished. So during that time on called meetings, we do limit our public speakers to 3 minutes rather than our normal 5. I will remind you that 3 minutes is what most public entities allow, period. Also as a reminder, when you approach the mic, if you'll please state your name, your resident city, and the specific agenda item that you tend to address. If it's a non-agenda item, it needs to be an item that this board of directors has jurisdiction over. So at the same time, that if an item doesn't sound like it qualifies for that, if I feel like someone's making a speech to the audience and not to the board, because that's you're directing your talk to the board, I will politely interrupt the person and either ask them to go on subject or to go ahead and be dismissed. So if you'll keep that in mind. We want to keep the meeting as appropriate. Again, we want to hear the public's comments. Although we don't interact with you normally, we are listening, we're taking notes, and we do take concern with those items. On the other hand, it's not a time for public speaking. It's a time to address the board. So I believe we have first up, Mr. Chandler Kraus. I almost expect a round of applause when he comes up. So.
I hope the intro music.
Yeah.
Are we good? Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to get to address you guys. I wanted to just mention that since the last meeting, I've talked to Mr. Bobbitt a couple times, Mr. Fuente, and submitted some different ideas. They've asked for input, and I've given input, and it's been a very constructive conversation. And I just, we're not always going to agree. I think that's the reason why it's important, is because kind of disagreement is part of how we make this thing better. But one thing that I'm just really impressed with is the amount of effort that I'm seeing from you guys. And it's not just them, it's just that's the first interaction that I've had. But I really appreciate all the effort that you all are putting into it. The comments I have today, I know that it's something that some other board members might not be aware of. It's nothing that you can really take action on today, but it's something to keep in the back of our mind, because I believe that a lot of the problems that we have here, like I mentioned in the last meeting, are a result of the conflict that appraisal districts and the citizens are put in because of the legislature. And so it creates an opportunity for leaders at the local level to stand up and rise above other appraisal districts and make sure that we're doing it right in Tarrant County, or maybe even taking innovative steps to take things in a different direction, to take some of the rough edges off of the conflict that the tax code puts us in. And so the primary example of that I want to bring to your attention today is evidence in the action item on the consent agenda on item A2, where you guys are going to consider, well, I guess it's already basically approved, that y'all are going to renew the licensing agreement for the Marshall and Swift tables and Moore's Precision rate tables. These are, I don't know a whole lot about them. I've never paid for that data, so I've never actually seen what's inside these books. But to my understanding, this is data that you guys have to use in order to be able to do your appraisals. Another valuable piece of information is private data that you get from the MLS. So you're tasked as an entity to appraise property, but yet the data that you have to use, the only way you can actually do your job well is to use private data. And then, so you have to do your job well, you have to do these things. So that as a member of the public, if I wanted to get access to this stuff, I don't really have that option. We've actually filed open records requests. Attorney General came back with an opinion. It was escalated to him and said, hey, I'm sorry, it would be inappropriate to utilize this data. And so this is a real dilemma. This is something that you have to get this in order to do your job well. So I don't begrudge the renewing of this. I support accurate values. I just see this as a conflict area where, once again, the legislature puts you guys in a position that puts the public at a disadvantage by not having access to this information.
Thank you, sir. You did good in 3 minutes. All right, we have next up Daniel J. Bennett. And I'll go ahead and mention he's going to address item 5, which public comments, and item 6. So take a look at that. Thank you.
David Bennett, 408 Pemberton. I will talk about the delaying the BOD manual. Opinion, when you delay the manual, you learned it until July 1st. These are the things that have been demonstrated throughout the years brought issues to this board. The reason we're changing the manual now is to stay any further issues going forward, all the ones that have plagued the district over time. And anytime elected for appointed elected officials get on here, and I hope it's just bad habits, because this agency's been harmed, and these are fixes. So I hope you will approve the board manual today. Mr. Bob, one of the questions during our meeting was, how are you going to decrease appraisals? And you said, well, you don't want to keep the public from protesting. The answer I was looking for was you doing it uniform and equal. That's it. Very simple, because that's one thing this agency's never done, is uniform and equal. Canvas system allows it. So we need to start treating the public with dignity by first getting their appraisals right. The Q&A and augmented support, all that was from the Tim Wiggle report that I did send to you. If you read in there, these, and also the tax agent annual, semi-annual meeting, it was all smoke and mirrors from the Tim Wiggle. It was all horrible rollout of Mr. Laws and trap. So he tried to do his public persona by improving. Okay, let's go to the chief appraiser's report. The first one you have is on February 8th. You called that during my meeting. It was a quarterly meeting. It's not reflected as a quarterly meeting in your minutes. So I don't know how you want to read it. Secondly, I want to talk about the elevator room. I got a minute and 10 seconds. Mr. Bunting came to my meeting. He wasn't invited. I asked Mr. Bobbitt to text him on his way there to not come. He came into the room. I asked him to leave. He said he wasn't going to leave. He sat down. Then Mr. Byrne turned in. He thought it was rude. He was offended by Mr. Pointage behavior. So the mayor of Haslett is going to come in and talk about the way his town is appraised. And we know under 6.15, no director can be in a room when appraisals are being discussed. And he even interrupted Mr. Halsey during his presentation, Mr. Bob, by saying this is being recorded. And Mr. Halsey, Mayor Halsey turned to Mr. Fuentes and said, I thought this was a private meeting. In other words, he was asked to leave, and he didn't. So 6.15 was violated, indirectly or directly. Interaction with appraisals, or discussing appraisals. I'm asking to admonish you and have you step down the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Appreciate that. All right. We are going on to, I think that is our total public comments. All right. Going to information items. We have, am I right here?
The report from the chief appraiser.
Yes, thank you very much. Board members noted one of the changes I've made to the agenda is just to simply move up the chief appraiser's report. We felt like sometimes what he has to say, not necessarily, but they may also add clarity to the other items down below. So you'll see that change going forward, that I'll have any report moved up unless somehow it's not appropriate, and then we'll go into the other action items. So, Mr. Appraiser.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chief, I should say.
Yes, sir. First, I want to start off with an introduction of Ms. Perlich, Donna Perlich. She's our support director of support services. The board had asked if we could have the different directors come and introduce themselves. If you want to come to the microphone and tell us a little bit about your department and your role.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Donna Perlich. I am the Director of Support Services. Sorry, I'm a little hoarse, having trouble this week with the 4 seasons we're going through. I've been with the appraisal district for 22 years. My roles have always been in support services over that 22 years. I'm responsible for overseeing 43 staff members, which includes customer service, records department, the exemption staff, as well as our imaging group. In customer service, it's the front counter that you see when you come in to the building. Of course, they help those that come into the office as well as on the phone. They're responsible for all mailing address changes, returned mail, as well as all confidentiality requests that we receive here at the district. The record staff are responsible for ownership updates, plats, splits, combines. We also have an addressing person in our records group that is responsible for all of the addressing of the unincorporated areas of the county, and then updates all of the information for the cities when we receive new plats and new ownership changes for those plats, giving them their new addresses. The exemption staff, of course, process all of the homestead exemptions, over 65s, disabled persons, disabled veterans. They work closely with the owners of Tarrant County to ensure that they know how to fill out their applications, that they submit all of the additional information that's needed with those applications, and they answer the call center. The imaging staff is responsible for all of the imaging for the entire district. So they receive all of the imaging documents, they create the work baskets, they create the workflows, and they keep the district up to date with all of that information that we receive in the form of paper. Yearly, just at some notes, is that the staff receive over 85,000 calls. They serve over 27,000 customers in person at the counter. They process over 80,000 ownership changes, over 650 plats. We do over 8,000 splits and combines, create over 10,000 new accounts normally each year, process over 55,000 exemption applications yearly, and update over 25,000 mailing addresses. They process over about 48,000 return mail documents that come not just back to the district from our mailings, but also the return mail through the tax office. We receive and image over 1 million pages and answer over 10,000 webmaster emails yearly. And so the staff does a fantastic job. They have a lot of work, and they do just an excellent job helping the taxpayers of Tarrant County. One other thing I just wanted to let y'all know is that I really appreciate the new system we got in customer service, the Nemo Cube. It has gone excellent. The staff love it, and it's made the entrance for the public signing in and getting called to the windows so much easier, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
How long have you been here?
22 years,
How many people do you have?
43.
If I could ask a question, I know Mike, and again, we're a lot small in this. We hire people that interface with the customers, and we hope we hire the right persons. We listen to them, but we're not big enough that we're sitting out for formal training. Here, with the high volume of traffic of people coming in, does our the front-facing people receive any specialized training, or is it just oversight and correction?
There is some training that we get, of course, the standard customer service training that's provided through IAAO. There's some workshops that we've done in the past. We haven't done one just recently, but we work internally with the staff as to how to approach and assist and what information we need at the counter.
Well, I think we've all been public about how the TAD needs to change its public facing. And again, not that it's the front people's fault or anything like that, but you might think about that we beef it up a little bit during this period of time, because we do need to change the face of TAD, and they're the front facing face. So
I definitely agree. And we do actually receive quite a bit of 5-star reviews on our blue cards that we have at the counter that tell us that the staff is doing an excellent job, and I really appreciate them taking the time to do that.
is there a procedure on those surveys that come back that are negative?
I haven't received negative on the blue cards at the customer service counter. We may have received some negative comments through maybe Google reviews. Is that correct, Ricardo?
I would say that most of probably 99% of the blue cards are all 5 stars, and I'll say we probably did, I guess if you go with Google review, you're probably getting 20% less.
So my question is, on the blue cards, if they do come back negative, is there a procedure to follow up on those, or at least examine them?
Yes, sir. I would reach out to them. We do receive calls as well. Sometimes they'll come directly to me, and I'll talk with those taxpayers and make sure that they're taken care of. If they're upset, they give any information as to how they see things that could change, how maybe they were treated. Then we have a discussion in regards to that and make improvements. Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Thanks. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I want to say, I've been here for over 4 years doing this particular job. And one of the areas that really hasn't lacked is the front-facing counter interaction. And so I think that's pretty good. I think it's always good to improve. But I think that part of the operation has been pretty good from what I've seen. I get emails that are less than 5 stars.
Yeah.
Okay. And those address areas, most people's interaction when they come here is very positive, and I recognize that. But the other areas are the things we really have to work on. So if you could weave that into your interactions and just let people know it's a new day,
Okay.
I think that would be good.
Definitely. Thank you, sir.
Can I do one?
Have we received any of those less than 5-star comments or things that you guys are receiving? Because we don't get very many of them. All less than 5-star reviews get emails and responses from not just Donna, but our online services. So if they exist and they're less than 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, if we can get a hold of those, a copy of those, we can definitely reach out and take care of them for sure.
Let me clarify what I was saying, if I could, Mr. Chairman. The things that I get comments about are not public service. I've got hundreds of emails in my new email box that are directed at the board. And most recently, the IT issues and those kind of things, and those have nothing to do with how the staff is interacting with those. If I see those, I definitely will.
Because our Survey Monkey, it asks about everything from IT to appraisal. I mean, they can let everything on there, so it's not just absolutely safe. Please send them our way. We'll take care of it.
Gloria?
Yeah, in my short
ready.
time on the board, I've gotten a few emails, very positive, specific employees, and I forward those to the chief appraiser and the chair, so that they're aware that I received these, because then some acknowledgement also to those employees can be done.
Yes, we actually do that when we receive them, if we receive a phone call, we send out a group message to our staff, congratulating people that receive good customer service reviews. So thank you.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to echo what Ms. Pena said. I think we all as a board received one in our email account, which actually 2 or 3 times from an individual that went through stages of how happy they were and how friendly and professional the staff was. But I'd also like to add to that, and that is in my last 2 months on the board, I received at least 3 telephone calls from people and members of the public that have said, what's going on at TAD? Things really went well at the front desk. And I got to tell you, on my prior time on the board, 2 years, I never received one positive call about the front desk. It was all, it's horrible, they treat me rude, they're disrespectful, but yet I got 3 calls in the last 2 months, which have just been incredibly positive. And not that they got what they wanted, but the point was that people went out of their way to get them an answer and to respond to them. So I'm glad to see that we're heading in that direction. That's your public relations firm, right then and there.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I feel remiss in not having Joe Don and Vince asked most of the questions I was going to make. So what I'll simply say is it's surprising, but it shouldn't be, the sheer volume of interactions you have with the community, as you noted in some of the numbers that you provided a little while ago. I think it's great. I think that's very important, as everyone said. Front-facing customer service is a challenging job, and to keep the positive feedback, positive energy, positive training going throughout, I think is very important. And everything I've heard has been great so far. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I have public outreach. And so I have a list of meetings that I've been attending. There's a couple others that I forgot to include. But the main point of this is that we're trying to reach out to the public through different means, different channels, and get people's input. We want additional input. And so if anybody else is out there that feels they were wronged or have suggestions, we're open to suggestions, and we'll take that. Some of the suggestions may take a while to implement. Some of them are bound to the software and other processes that take time, but the goal is we want to improve. One of the things is we want to appreciate the board and some of the agents that we've sent out the beta. We have a beta version on our website. And so we're going through testing of that. We intend to roll that out in the next week to a larger beta program, let people, the public interact with it. And then hopefully if we continue getting good feedback, then we'll make that the conversion and make that the full-blown site. But we want to make sure we get all the feedback necessary before we make that transition, so we can avoid the issues we had last year. But we do appreciate the board taking time to test it. The next is the property value study. And so for 2023, the study was released. The comptroller conducts a study for every 2 years. And so the main things I want to point out on the middle column is the median level of appraisal. And so for single family residences, we're at 1, which is 100% of market value. So the state studied almost 9,000 properties. And based on that ratio of all the properties in the county, we're at 100% of market value. And so a lot of people come in and say that we're too high. And it's a bell curve. And so most of the properties in the middle will be pretty close. There's going to be some out on the far right that are too high. There's going to be some on the far left that are way too low. But overall, we're doing an excellent job. The staff is. And that's including with bad software. So, I mean, the fact that we're getting 100% is outstanding that the staff have been able to accomplish that. The coefficient of dispersion just shows how standard our data is. And so a COD of 7 is very good. You get down below a 5, it starts looking like we're chasing cells, which the state is not a fan of. And then has the percent ratio within 10% and 25%. And so that shows that that all of our values are still fairly close together, and there's not a whole lot of outliers. And then below, for comparison, for 2023, the comptroller studied 129 appraisal districts, so roughly half of the districts in the state. 42 were below the threshold that the state allows, so below 95%. So basically, a third of the counties are undervalued. 2/3 of the counties are within the range, so plus or minus 5% of where we have to be at market. There's only one county in the state that's exceeding market value. So this is a statewide trend. Everybody thinks that we overappraise. Appraisal districts really have no interest in overappraising. It really just makes people mad and doesn't really benefit anybody. When how the tax rate is calculated is said, it doesn't really benefit the schools. And so this just gives you an idea of the pressure that we have from the state, and that like a third of the districts are failing essentially. And so and then when you get into the school districts, this really affects school funding, and that if we fail the property value study, I get a naughty mark on my license, which doesn't really affect anything unless I go and get another job in another county. The new board might look at it and think poorly of me. However, you know, if the schools do not get their local value, then they find out mid-year that they have to refund money to get back to the state. And so it could be millions of dollars being refunded. And then myself and potentially the board would have to go talk to the superintendent and the school boards and explain why the schools are refunding millions of dollars. So this is the primary function that the reason we exist and why we try to be accurate in our values. We really just only want to get it right. We have no real goal to increase the values more than what can be supported. Training and education. We took several staff down to the TAAD conference, the Texas Association of Appraisal Districts in Houston. We received quite a few continuing education hours that are required by law. We met with a lot of other appraisal districts to discuss how they operate, any kind of good ideas that they had. We met with quite a few vendors regarding Canvas software and other potential software, just to see if there's a better way to do things. And I think the staff gained a lot. It was pretty successful. And we did have the board chair and board secretary attended the board track. So I think I don't want to speak for y'all, but I think y'all gained some insight from that meeting.
Chief, could you briefly elaborate on the CE requirement and the reason why it's at that particular, and what other options there are for the staff that need to have those, have to go to those conferences and trainings?
You can get CEs through a lot of different sources. We're required to have 30 hours every 2 years. So a lot of the staff we do a lot of training in-house, do our own classes. And so for a lot of the staff, they can stay here and get the CEs. There are some online options. What the TAAD conference does, it allows you to interact with other districts and then find better ways also while you're still getting CEs. And so typically we take the upper management and the key employees that actually make things happen. Part of it's kind of a reward. Part of it's people that are intelligent can bring back new ideas and implement them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And actually on that, since you brought that up, Alan, if everyone attended that I was told was attending, and including Ms. Pena and myself, we had 20 attendees there. Now, Ms. Pena and myself were only there. We came the night before and then went to the meetings and when we left. But at least 18 staff members that were there for a couple of days. And it, again, without getting into the nitty-gritty details, I hear what you're saying about quote reward. I know from my own experience going and hearing what other people have to say after the speaker, and just to decide what you think of that. Those are valuable conversations. But it does sound like a lot of people and the expense related to that. So again, you were not the one in charge at the time those people were authorized to go. Maybe that is the correct amount, but I would admonish you next time something like this comes up again, be sure and take a double take, because we are in a environment of we need to save costs. We need to bring lower cost taxpayer. Yeah, we need to motivate our employees. We need to train our employees. They need to get exposed to other entities. So
yes, sir. I think Julie has.
I would just add that we only have one director that has been here for a while. The one that spoke this morning, a lot of the directors are new. And so that was one of the rationales for
Good,
getting.
yeah.
more people.
And again, it's valuable. So, all right, good. Thank you.
Next, I have CAM conversion. And so this is a very rough possible timeline. And so just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at, I would like to have an RFP out in May. By June, hopefully we'd get responses back and we can narrow down to 3 of the best vendors based on scoring. By July or August, I would like to go ahead and award a proposal to a vendor. But in part of this process, I want the top three choices. I want them to come and have a public meeting. That way they can present basically what they're selling us and sell it to y'all, explain what the benefits are, the cost, and then that way the public's involved. We can get input from everybody that's involved and has a stake in this. There are several very good companies and very good products that are out there. Some of them have concerns for different reasons or another, but so we need to bring that all out and let y'all look at it. By August, I want to finalize a contract and have it in place. Realistically, December to January would be the first time we could start installing it. And then April, we would like to start testing it, and by August, so by the time we certify, I would want it to be live and current system turned off. If everything goes well, I'd like to turn it off sooner if we can get the other one set up in place and get it tested and make sure the tax office can receive our files. Because the current system, it has some issues, and thought of going through 2 more appraisal cycles, protest seasons, is not something I look forward to. But also don't want to jump into too fast. So I don't want to commit to doing it before next year, but by August, I want to have it in place.
Quick comment on this. Personal feeling is this timeline front loaded is pretty aggressive. Hopefully we can achieve those dates. I would love to see us get done sooner and not have to go through 2 more seasons.
Yes, sir.
But I think realistically that would be extremely challenging. But I look forward to this process, and I look forward to stakeholder and public comments as well. Yes, sir.
I want to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to the training
Yes, ma'am.
because I'm sitting here and I feel like I need to voice this. The training that the staff received, and myself and Mr. Puente, well, we were there only for the one day. That was because that was board specific training that we went to and only needed. I think the value added with the staff being there was tremendous, because as a chair, you know, we sit here in our own little bubble and we think we have all these problems and that we're unique in the good that we do and whatever. We are not. What I found out by interacting with the other board members from across the state was our problems are not unique to us. They're across the entire state. So that was a significant value to me. And if this is the kind of interaction that our staff is getting being down there, then I think that is such value that we can't pull people back. We need to let the numbers that went, that's a small portion of employees, 20 people, that's a small portion, but the value gained by that, I think, is tremendous. So I would never want to say don't send those people, because I know what I got in the one day was pretty significant for me.
I will add to that, professional development and conferences. When you get to a certain size organization in a certain sphere, I think it's incredible that it can all be done here in state and, you know, potential drivable distance cities, which keeps the cost lower. I know at the city level, we have numerous positions in our law enforcement and our city management and others. For them to have peer conversations, there's only 4 other cities that can relate inside the state. So a lot of those conferences are regional or nationwide. So in the grand scheme of things, if you're having to travel for professional development, in-state is a blessing. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
If I could comment about CAM.
Well, and Gary, you'll have to comment after that so everyone.
First of all, at the end, there's no date for the Momentum is Gone party.
Yes, sir.
That was introduced roughly 10 years ago, actually more than that, as a beta product. So number one rule for me is let's not have a beta product.
I agree.
And I know you and I talked about that before, so that's true. Also, in your process of doing the RFP, I know you're going to be consulting with Board Director Blaylock about some of that. He's got expertise in that area, and that will help. I'm going to suggest also, and you may be doing this already, but the agents, the ones, especially the ones that work in other counties, what is useful to them. I know a bunch of these guys, and what they're really interested in is ease of use.
Yes, sir.
And I think everybody is. And Momentum had difficulties, and the Slack's website had a lot of difficulties. And I want to jump on that for just a second. The website, I've been through it. And I use the website in my business on a regular basis, but I don't use it extensively to scrutinize values of property. And that's the screening that we need. Now, as I understand it, you give it to the board so we can look at it. And I will tell you, my first reaction is, wow, things happen quickly. You press a button,
Yes, sir.
and things happen. And the reason that to me was surprising is a new website. And last year I could not use it because I had to wait for, everybody was telling me it's fixed. And I'm thinking, it's not fixed for me. It is not loading up any information. And the little circle turns and turns and turns. And then after a while, I've got other things to do. So I have to find another workaround. So I was pleased about that. And then also, I think you mentioned your plan is as you implement the new HAMA software, there's going to be some overlap with the old.
Yes, sir.
That was the other thing that was a disaster last time.
Yes, sir.
So that is your plan.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
On the next page, I know I've mentioned briefly that we need a new building, or we need to do something to address the lobby for the taxpayers. And so I just want y'all to know this is a very long, slow process and a very deliberate process. And so we'll have plenty of input from the board and the entities as far as what is the appropriate next step, if there is anything. So, I mean, the first option is we do nothing. We continue the way we're going. The second option is the first bullet point. We already have some existing redesign plans that we've already paid for in the past year or two. And so we can pull those back out, look at them, see if any of those make sense. With some of the software that we're looking at, like Travis County has really utilized the web meeting part. And so it's integrated into the website, it's integrated in the Canvas system. And so it's all one unique or one consistent package. You don't have to download any additional software. You just go to the website, you click join my protest hearing, and your webcam turns on and you're in the hearing. And so the Travis County population has really enjoyed that, and like 60% of the hearings are now virtual. And so that would drastically reduce the number of people sitting in our lobby. So with software, we may alleviate some of our building issues. But it also depends on the population. Some counties have implemented virtual stuff and it just died on the vine. It wasn't supported very well. The third option would be relocate to just an entirely larger space, whether we move downtown or we move someplace in the business district out here where there's another larger building. Some of the, I think Ms. Pena had mentioned there may be some delinquent properties that have been taken because of delinquent taxes, that properties that entities own, they might be available for us to acquire. Potentially the city may have some buildings that they are moving out of. So there may be some other avenues that we haven't really thought of or fully vetted yet. But so it is a very long process, and it's not something I'm just saying we need to spend, gobs and gobs of money on right now. It's just something we need to consider. With 9 shares in the ARB lobby, just was very surprising to me coming from a smaller county. So it's just something I think we need to address. Below, Well, the last option would be just a smaller building for the ARB separate, where this is the Tarrant Appraisal District and the ARB is in a separate building, completely housed. It would help with the appearance of it being two separate entities. However, with the ARB appointment coming back to the board of directors, that kind of goes out the window anyways. So it is what it is. But below, I have a map showing on the far left is our appraisal district. And so if you go 2 streets back on Gravel Drive with the little red star, that's where our annex is. So I think I was talking to you, Mr. Diot, that I walked over there too, but I couldn't tell you where it was because I walked over to it until I knew it was nearby. And so the picture below is our little annex building. There's not very good parking over there. It's mainly going to be designed for agents because they typically have less people coming over there and they will sit there all day. So that's our current goal with this. And we've been testing it right now. So IT wise, it's working quite well.
If I can add, in the picture that everybody's looking at to the right, there's a big expanse between these 2 buildings. That's a major drainage. So if somebody parks their car in there, goes inside, and a big rainstorm comes along, it could
Might swim.
So you have to take that into consideration too. So,
Yes, sir.
Do we own or rent the annex building?
We're leasing it. I think we have a 5-year lease.
and we just, Chairman, we just did that last year.
Okay, so we have 4 years left. And what are, again, the busy months that it's really an issue?
May,
As far as-
June, and July.
May, June. So I think that it's going to be
And
our
April, I guess.
April.
Yes, sir.
And again, that's significant. And that's where I think we need to be creative because it's a portion of the year versus the bulk of the year.
Yes, sir.
And so if you
Well,
expand our building, if we get another building, whatever, we're paying for that, that cost is increased for 8 months of the year that we're not
Yes,
really
sir.
needing it. But
Yes.
again, that's the challenges we all have, so.
well, actually, remember in the last meeting, I said I was gonna go around front and I had some questions. If it's not the busy time, it sure was crowded for not being a busy time because there are not that many chairs out there. And there were a few people standing. Now, I didn't hear anybody complaining, but the chairs were filled and it's supposedly not the busy time. So, they are maxing out the space here, even in regular day-to-day business. So we do need to address it. I think it's probably important to take care of the non-busy times as well as the busy times.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to reinforce, I was saying that's a challenge we have is that, you're right. It's something we need to consider without any doubt at all. I agree with you. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I would throw out tied to historical, the staff at the direction of the chief appraiser prior to Mr. Bobbitt, from year to year, there was confusion on whether or not there would be informal settlements at the desk. When that happened, then that automatically kicks into the ARB for a hearing. They may have already protested, but one of their avenues from a taxpayer standpoint is to informally agree to an amount. And if they're not satisfied, move to an ARB hearing. I would hope that the staff would reinstitute that particular policy to try to negotiate at the desk in order to minimize the ARB hearings for 2 reasons. One is time, one is space, and the other is not ticking off the taxpayer. And that's a great avenue for great public relations. If a taxpayer comes into the desk, brings their evidence, and the district says, you know what, you're close enough, that evidence, we'll go with that and be done with it. So I would suggest that we go back to that way. I don't remember what it was last year, but I know some years it was on, some years it was off, and that created a lot of consternation. So just a suggestion.
I believe we've settled informally about 90%.
Okay, great.
Because out of 250,000 protests, only 20,000 or so actually go to the board. And so by and large, I mean, the staff are doing everything they can to try to get them resolved. if the people are willing to come talk to us.
Hope to keep it going.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying what Gary said had happened off and on is happening, that they have the ability to?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The staff are resolving as many as they can without going to the ARP.
Great.
Thanks, Gary. Any other comments?
I believe that's all I have.
All right, any other questions? All right, we're gonna go on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda as follows. Action regarding approval of Board of Directors meeting minutes February 9th, 2024. Action regarding staff recommendation for renewal of end user license agreement EULA for Marshall and Swift rate tables and Moore's precision rate tables. Action regarding approval of contract for McQuarrie, I can't say all this, that name, Bragg and Allen, PC, to serve as the legal counsel for the Board of Directors, as we all know as Matthews. As a reminder, any board member may ask for an item to be withdrawn and discussed separately. So do I have a motion or comment?
I would like to withdraw from the consent agenda item A2 so we can elaborate a little bit. in discussion on that topic.
Any other comment?
Mr. Puente, 7A, 1, which is the minutes of the last board meeting. I don't know that we necessarily need to pull it unless the board would not be in agreement with what I'm suggesting. But when I look at the minutes, it just says 3 people spoke. I would like to have those people's names placed in the record for easy referencing when you go back to a particular meeting to try to find out what went on. I mean, we're gathering that information anyway, I think.
Yes, sir, we keep the speaker cards, and you can PIA the speaker cards if you want to know who spoke.
Right, so I would say if we just list the names, that would, on there, that would be good. It would tie into the speaker cards, and we would know that, like, the 2 people that spoke today.
I would say just for safety of individuals, because we're not as big as a globally or international, or big as a city that gets thousands of viewers. A lot of people would like to know when they come and speak if they're protected because of whatever their personal situation might be. Normally we tell them we do not list it there. We do have to hear if someone PIAs it is to Attorney General of Public Information. They will receive it. But the front line, we're not just putting it out there. So that should be something to consider.
Can we put that on the sheet that asks them if they would mind if we release the information?
You guys
That would
tell us-
take care of the
you guys
problem,
tell
because
us-
I'm in agreement with Mr. Losada.
And we really need to notify them that they're on camera
So that'd be
when
something.
before they walk in and are on camera. So we can also.
Yeah.
So, I agree with everything that's said, but it is public. It is on the website. Anybody can view it.
Well,
I'm agreeing.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but when you say it's on the website, I'd have to go through
Right.
40 or 50 minutes before we'll say 40 minutes, to find out who spoke. Whereas if it just listed there,
No, I'm saying it's public anyway.
no, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for referencing.
Yes.
I'm not trying to say it's public or not public or whatever. I'm just saying for easy referencing, because I go back periodically to prior meetings to see what went on and who spoke and who said what. That's all. Just, I don't want to hijack this, but
No, I think you're right. I
Not-
think
No, I don't think it's hijacked at all. Gary, I think you made some good points. My question to you is, are you comfortable stipulating this moving forward, or do we want to pull these minutes and correct these? And
well, that's a great question. I don't mind just doing it forward. I mean, sometimes you got to cut it off sometimes. So yeah, just moving forward. Like for today's meeting, we had Mr. Crouch, Mr. Bennett speak. Then at the next minutes we review under that section, it would say 2 members of the public spoke, Mr. Crouch, Mr. Bennett. That's all. Don't need to say what the subject was, anything. Just the name.
I think that's fair. I don't think we want to get
Okay. So,
into the business of
so
categorizing.
as this consent item, I'm going to move us on. Julie, we're going to give you more work. So we appreciate that. And Gary, going forward, we'll do that. I think it's a great suggestion.
Okay.
All right. I have item 2 removed. We have item 1 and 3. Do I have a motion to accept item 1 and 3?
I would like to say something, and I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda afterwards. The third item here regarding the contract is the firm that Ms. Baxter and Matthew Tepper work for. Their presence in these meetings and as a resource to this board has been invaluable. They have done, in my opinion, again, I go back over 4 years now, has been invaluable. And I not only want to approve that contract, I'm going to do it enthusiastically. And I want them to know that we appreciate very much their expertise and the way they do their business. It's been great for us.
All right, good.
So I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, items 1 and 2, accepting, I'm sorry.
1 and 3.
3, accepting item 2 of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, no discussion.
Would you like discussion?
Yes. I still, and it has nothing to do with, I like Matthew, okay? I still don't understand why we have 2 different attorneys. I'm working through this. I'm willing to keep my mind open. I'm trying to figure this out because I understand there have been things in the past that I've not been part of. But on the other side, they're cheap. I mean, cost-wise, I couldn't believe when I saw the contract how much I'm currently paying an attorney a lot more than that to do some work for me.
Don't advocate for them to raise their price.
I'm just thankful. Again, I said I don't understand why we have 2 attorneys at this point. I'm still working through that, but given the cost associated with this, I'm not going to vote against it. But I still want more information as to why we have 2 separate attorneys,
So,
just structurally.
yeah,
All right, so
we actually have several.
yeah, let's handle it outside of the meeting, okay? And we can do that. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. It passes. All right, I guess we go directly to item 2 then. All right, so we're going to go to 7A2, action regarding staff recommendations for renewal of the end user license agreement for Marshall Swift tables and Morse Precision rate tables. Alan, I don't know if you want to start with a statement or just ask for.
Well, so I would simply like to ask Chief Appraiser to elaborate a little bit on these 2 particular rate tables and why we have to have rate tables, and of the realm of available, why these 2 in particular.
We're required to have generally accepted data sources, and these are the 2 that are considered generally accepted in the realm. Marshall and Swift is probably the larger of the 2. Morse Precision is a more economical version, but it's essentially where we get all of our cost data as far as construction costs and estimates for commercial and residential properties. Without it, we would have to do builder surveys and do our own, spend a lot of time and effort building, cost tables on our own. And then we would have to argue with taxpayers on why we are correct in our cost tables, as opposed to pointing to an outside source that's nationally recognized, and say, this is where the number came from, and that's why we're using it. So it helps give validity to our cost estimates, our values.
One thing.
Yes, sir.
Same subject, Mr. Bobbitt. Would it be fair to say that the majority of the cost basis is for bricks and sticks? Okay.
Yes,
The
sir.
reason why I'm bringing that up, again, past history, the district was going back and forth. 1 year it would be Marshall Swift. The next year it would be what the district came up with. And it just gave fits to the public because they said, what standard are you using? Well, by taking it out of the district's hands and put it in a third party, unbiased, again, creates less hassles in the ARB hearings. So I would be entirely supportive of this and would make a motion to approve.
Have a second? Okay, I do have a discussion item. We have a motion and a second. What are we approving dollar wise?
It's,
I'm sorry, is it there?
yes, sir.
It's
14,000 for Marshall and Swift, 14,824, 77,879 for more precision data.
All right, thank you. Any other comment? Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? It passes.
92,000 total.
Yeah, thank you. All right. We are going now to items 7B, review deliberate and action on contracts, billing agreements, verbal, written in excess of $50,000 not previously reviewed. I turn it over to you, Chief Appraiser.
The board had previously asked for us to bring any contracts that had purchases that previously exceeded 50,000. After reviewing, we didn't find any, but we did find this purchase that exceeded our internal policy for 25,000 for IS. And so in October, I believe, we hired Improving Dallas to help with some of the website issues that we were having. And so we spent $45,500 in an effort to fix some issues that we're dealing with. And so it was already spent, but then we realized that we exceeded our own internal policy. So we're having to bring it back to the board.
Yes, sir, Rich.
Does this falls within the existing budget?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion.
Any other comment? Yes, Ms. Bailey.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'd make the motion that we retroactively approve TAD's engagement with Improving Dallas for the work performed on the TAD website in November and December of 2023 to comply with TAD's purchasing policy.
all right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rich. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes. All right, item C, review and discuss salary and position changes not originally listed in the 2024 budget. Mr. Chief Appraiser.
Yes, sir. So this is to clean up a couple issues. We have it broken down into three different categories. The first group are salary adjustments that were not included in the 2024 budget. So myself, the board entered in a contract with myself that exceeded our 2024 stated budget for the chief appraiser. We are also, I think back in September, we started discussing hiring a replacement for Brad for a personal property director. And so we were able to steal a guy from Dallas County. And so, but to do so, we had to pay him more than what was budgeted for that position. And so for those two positions, we're just updating the budget or amending the budget to include that total. We're not asking for any additional funds from the entities. It's taking out from internally. It's going to be a wash inside of our budget. But by law, it states our budget includes position and salary. And so since we were changing those and exceeding what was sent out to the entities, we just want to make sure that we're clear and transparent on this and that will stay within the law. The second group is a position and salary adjustment. And so I think I've mentioned that I want to make William Durham, who was the interim, I want to make him the official deputy chief appraiser. That way I'll have a deputy and William as the director of administration. Most districts our size have two deputies. And so he would still be in charge of commercial, but he would have additional duty of deputy chief. And so his salary would change from 162,000 to 201. And then the third group, money-wise, it's no change. We're just basically moving people from one department and one title to another department and title. We're taking a residential division manager from the residential department, and we're creating a quality assurance manager in the administration department. So that is my friend Grady. He's going to be in charge of like a project manager when we do the CAMA conversion. So that'll be kind of his goal, and also just look at policies and procedures that we do internally just to make sure they make sense as we move forward. Also a support service specialist from the commercial department. We're going to move them into the administration department as more of an HR kind of role, which is the ultimate goal, that we have a backup. And then the last one is an exemption specialist and support services. So they'll be in the same department, but they're going to be recategorized as a customer support representative. So we have one more person in the front desk that when people come in, we can assist at least a few more people in a more timely manner. So but overall, we're not asking for any additional funds. We're just moving things around internally to make it function and then flow better.
No
Yes, sir,
action
Rich.
is being requested. This is just informational.
We have to, technically, the secretary of the board has to notify the entities that we're proposing a budget amendment. And so then the entities have 30 days, and then we will actually come back at the April or May meeting, and y'all will vote to actually make this official if the entities have not raised any concerns. So I believe that's correct, Julie.
Yes, sir. I have a draft of a letter that could come from you, Ms. Kenya, if you want to review it after this meeting, that would notify the entities that we plan to go out 30 days before the next.
But we'll make it very clear that we're not asking for any additional funds. It's just internal movements.
So although it sounds like you just answered in a way, on the position changes, you're saying those 3 position changes, except one's new, Grady.
Yes, sir.
But the other 2, they're moved from here to here, and their salary does not change, period.
Yes, sir.
In Grady's position, he's assuming, are we getting a savings on the prior person? Is it the same?
It was a residential division manager position that they just had not filled. And so when we hired Grady, I plugged him into that spot.
So it's the exact same wage?
Yes, sir.
That was plugged, okay.
Yes, sir. The wage that he's being paid was already allotted for that residential division pay.
Okay.
Because the board approved the titles and positions, the board needs to approve the change of titles and positions. So even though it's no more money, that's fine.
Has the board's counsel, namely Matthew or Ms. Baxter, reviewed that letter?
No, but it won't go out until Wednesday, so we can certainly do that. I just wanted to see if you guys approve the motion first and make sure that she has. But it would go.
I didn't speak to Matthew about whether this was necessary, because my personal opinion is they weren't actually asking for any additional money. I didn't think we needed to. Matthew said we did. So here we are. All right.
And just for complete clarity, what we're doing today is authorizing you to communicate with taxing entities of these proposed changes. And then once we have their feedback, we'll actually vote to ratify it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we do need a motion?
I'll make the motion to authorize staff to proceed with the proposed budget amendment to the prescribed manner described in the Texas Property Tax Code.
I'll second.
We have a second? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Fuente, before we leave this subject, can I bring something to the board's attention?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A few years ago, the staff conducted a comparative salary study to other similar districts such as ours. After I analyzed that study, I determined, and Mr. Law, while he didn't like what I brought up, did agree that staff was being paid at the executive level approximately 21% higher than the comparable districts that we surveyed. What happened that year was that the board, and I don't remember the exact amount, but I want to say it was 3% in the budget, but the board elected to not give any increases that particular year to the exempt employees or executive level in order to try to deal with the discrepancies below that at the appraisal level, clerk level, whatever. I would like to have my fellow board members join me in asking the staff to conduct another comparative study. And the reason why I'm saying that is that that will be key in how we establish our budget. And if that would be, I don't think it requires an action item, but if the staff, the board would be in agreement with that, I think Mr. Bobbitt probably knows how to do that. Don't need to tell him how to do it, but I think that would be appropriate for us building the budget. So I'd like to see it completed into the board at least a couple of weeks before the budget hearings begin.
Janet is already working on that.
Gosh, you guys are good.
Taryn, we actually send one out pretty much every year. And Waco, I used to participate in it. We would look forward to seeing the results of it. So we'll bring it to, I don't know if April or May, but one of the meetings we'll have it. I forget how soon we'll get it back, but.
I'll accept that money for, no.
All right, item D, review, discuss possible action on TAD personnel policy manual changes. So Mr. Bobbitt.
Yes, sir. The first one, it is regarding our compensatory time. And what I struck out is the sentence that says, if not, the time will be lost. And so right now the policy states that when instead of overtime pay, the employees get compensation, basically vacation time at 1.5 times in lieu of pay. And so what this policy currently states is that if they don't use it within a year, the next following year, they lose it. According to the Department of Labor, that is basically wage theft, because basically that is in lieu of cash. And so we are taking it away, and we should not be doing that. I don't know if we have done it. I just know that's what the policy states that we could. And so I'm proposing that we strike that one line, and then we change should to must as far as compensatory time has to be spent before vacation time is spent. Because vacation time, if you can't expire if you have more than what's allowed, the maximum amount. So most employees wouldn't hit that, but vacation time can expire. That's allowable. But compensatory time is considered touchy.
Before he goes to the next item, is there any discussion on that item?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. So the way I read this, it could be entirely possible if I have, compensatory time this year, and let's say I'm in, I accrue a week of it during the month of December, and I have vacation time left that I would have normally taken in that calendar year. If I'm required to take my compensatory time in lieu of vacation, the vacation goes into the next year, do I lose it?
You can accrue up to 2 times what you earn in 1 year. And so as long as you're not at the maximum amount of what you can carry over, then you wouldn't lose anything. But if you're already maxed out, then January you would lose some of your vacation time.
Okay, so, and that's the crux of my concern is, I completely understand the payroll issue, but I also understand, vacation time from an employee's perspective is viewed as part of their overall compensation.
Yes, sir.
And my concern would be that we're costing them one way or the other potentially. I just want to make sure the policy doesn't create the alternate situation where someone may lose vacation time that they would have otherwise been able to take.
The policy allows me to pay, budget permitting, that we have enough cash available, that I would pay off any excess amount of compensatory time. So at the end of the year, if we have enough funds remaining, I could pay down quite a few of the staff's comp time. That way they may not lose vacation time. And so most of the time it's between the April and July timeframe is when it's earned. So they have 5 to 6 months to try to use it.
Along those lines, I do have a question. Because we worked much the same way in federal government. However, what would happen was at the end of the year, the time you're talking about, like during the Iraqi and all that stuff, there were occasions where we couldn't take our vacation time. There were exceptions made. You had to write a letter telling why you couldn't and how it would impact the organization. And then you were given a waiver and that was held for you. Those were exceptions. So maybe we could establish some type of exception if that case happened, but it would have to be something that would critically impact the organization for the reason they did not take their time off. So it's like, you can't have poor planning and then put it on us. It has to be for a specific reason.
So I think in that case, you should look at there's rarely ever any exception. I hate to start creating policy on something that's not even occurred. So it's a good point.
It's going to occur because that's life.
So my question would be is compensatory time. Just give me a brief definition of that and an example.
Right now, as we prepare for the protest season, we already have departments requesting the employees work 8 hours on Saturday and 2 hours at the end of the day. So between like 5 and 7. And so you end up earning 16 hours roughly a week that they're working additionally. And so since they're over 40 hours in a given week, they get 1.5 times that in comp time.
Times.
Yes, sir. Exempt employees can only earn this straight time. And so if I work 90 hours in a week, then I just get straight time potentially the next week if authorized. And so,
Or like today, because we had the meeting at 8.
Okay.
We don't get paid.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yes, sir, Gary.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Bob, on the same line. When we change the word from should to must implies that some action is going to take place. What would the action be if they didn't take it? It says they must, but they didn't. So what action would the staff?
what would happen would be Kenesha does the payroll. If they put in for vacation time to use tomorrow, but they have 40 hours of comp time, she would just change it in the system and deduct it from their comp time balance instead of their vacation time balance.
So you pay them?
They would still get paid. It would just deduct out of their comp time balance
Okay.
instead of vacation.
In the past, there was abuse of compensatory time. So I would ask that the staff and administration be very diligent about this. There are certain times of the year that comp time is not going to work.
Yes, sir.
And if people start compiling it to the last day, last week of the year, then you'll have nobody staffing the building.
Yes, sir.
So I would just urge that of the staff to all the way down to watch that, get it done so it doesn't get to be, 100, 200 hours worth of comp time, because that's going to be an impact to the district financially. That's why I asked the first question.
Yes, sir.
So just throw that out.
And just out of curiosity, they have comp time, they have regular vacation. Do they get sick days?
Yes, ma'am. Sick time
as
also.
well? Okay, so they could use some of that by their own choice, some of their comp time for their 6 days.
Yes, ma'am.
So actually, I'm gonna go back and ask the question again. This is way above my small business head, at least what we do. So I worked 2 hours over because I was required to.
Yes,
for comp time. On that paycheck that week, do I get 2 hours over? Do I get paid more?
No, sir.
Okay, it's purely a comp
Salary.
It's comp time.
Yes,
Okay,
sir. Because we're government, we can do this instead of
overtime.
paying overtime. Yes, sir.
Okay,
And you do have a variance, because I know in the federal government, if you go past 52 weeks of not taking that comp time, you are paid automatically for that time that you worked.
And that we have the option to pay, but it's basic budget allowing. So if we're getting tight on the budget, then
Right.
we may not have an option.
all right, let's go to the next item.
The next request, the first two yellow deals we're changing. So it says TAD appraisers who successfully passed the registered professional appraiser exam. It originally said receive the registered professional certificate. And then we're striking the line, the property tax licensing authority awards their certification. And we're changing to of their successful completion of the level 4 RPA exam. So what this is trying to get to is when an appraiser has passed the last test the state requires, then they then are eligible to receive a raise or a bonus, or I guess it's a raise. Because currently right now, you have to wait until the state actually gives you your certificate and awards you as an RPA before you're eligible to receive the raise. Some of the staff have worked diligently and passed their test early. And so they might get it in 2 to 3 year time frame instead of the 5 year time frame. And so what we're looking to do is go ahead and reward them early, since they were able to pass all the tests in a very timely manner and get their designation. So the state may not give them the shiny little piece of paper that says, congratulations, you're an RPA, but they have passed all the requirements except for time. So
So is this 5% increase a state mandated increase, or is this just a TAD policy?
it's a TAB policy, and I think it has in here based on salary also. So it's subject to annual availability of budgeted resources.
So
So
5% is a huge chunk.
we start the employees off.
No, I hear that all the time, but She'll cart my business to
Yes, sir.
see. But I'm just saying it's a huge chunk.
So how do you validate that if you don't get a certificate, how are you validating the?
They bring back their test score from us from PSI as the testing facility.
Okay,
And so it has their picture and who, that they took it and what their passing grade was. So
Yes, sir, Rich.
Just by way of comparison, in engineering, there are multiple tests that have to be taken to get the license. You become a professional engineer after your engineering training. If an engineer in training passes all their tests, there's no way I would pay them as if they were a registered engineer. These are just things I can't. So I'm struggling a little bit with that.
and does it every year when they get certified, they get an additional 5%, just
This-
one time?
this is just,
And it can be taken away if they don't get recertified?
well, you don't get recertified. You don't have to retake the test. You basically can maintain your continuing education to stay in RPA.
So if they don't maintain their continuing education,
They will
is
be
the-
terminated.
oh, okay. It's more severe than taking the pay,
So
okay.
you get 100% wage savings.
Rich, could you repeat the final part? Which, so what is your concern?
My concern, I'm trying to relate this to the world I live in. And the engineering license, for instance, that people we hire, the professional engineer, comes with a seal, they can seal plans. There's a lot of things that go with that registration. It makes us more marketable. There's a lot of things about the registration that are important. But they can pass the principles of practice exam and they can pass the EIT exam. And if they got that done in 2 years, we wouldn't pay them for the registration until they were qualified. And I'm trying to relate what you're suggesting. I understand if I was to transfer that to what's typical in our profession, I'm assuming others as well. If time is a requirement, it is a requirement. And so the certification, if they get it done quickly, that's good for them. But I don't know that I would not pay somebody as a registered engineer who only had EIT after their name. So I don't know, Vince, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. So if you hire somebody, they already have this, do you have a wage and then you bump it 5% again?
No, sir. If we hire somebody that already has their RPA,
It's just what,
we pay them in line with what their current staff are being paid.
I get it. It's the difference between, the journeyman plumber and a master plumber and everything else.
it's a certificate.
It's a registered license.
Yeah.
It is something that's documented.
Now, the RPA, that exists, people use that in the private, it's not just with government.
No, you have to work in.
Yeah, so
Basically,
appraisers in tax agent world and just property appraisers, they can't go out and do appraisal work without the certification. So in the private sector, there wouldn't be an incentive to do that unless they were registered, because what we have. So,
Like for the difference between us and engineers, like once you're licensed with TDLR, you basically have full authority to be an appraiser and do anything. So once an appraiser becomes an RPA, there are no additional rights or benefits and privileges that come with that. So once they're registered with TDLR, even if they've taken no classes, like they can do pretty much whatever, except be a chief appraiser until they have chief appraiser institute and other things like that. But that's really the only limitation. So as far as going into a hearing, doing anything else, appraising a property, whether they're an appraiser 1 or they have their level 4 test completed.
So Gary, do you have any comment or question?
no, sir.
Okay. Does anyone have a desire? Yes, sir.
Just a couple quick clarifications. One is, what's the time frame that we're talking about between when they pass the test and when they're officially licensed?
You have to pass it within 5 years. Earliest might be 3.
No, his question is from the time I pass and get my grade to the time I get my certificate, I believe. Is that correct, Alan?
Correct. Right. Because that's what we're changing, right?
Right.
We're changing
Time
from
certificate.
the
or
award
test to
certification to when they complete the test. What's the time delta between those two items?
Could be around 2 years.
Wow. That's slow.
That's, and for clarity, security, that's because it just takes the entity, the state, that long to issue?
The state's looking at the 5-year mark, like,
Okay, so that they're looking at time certain.
yes, sir.
So,
So for a professional engineer, to extend that analogy, you have to have 4 years of relevant experience as an engineer.
So the experience is counting toward part. So does anyone, I'm going to ask the board this.
I apologize, I had one other
Yes,
quick
sir.
question. The other question is, what do other taxing entities do in this particular case?
It varies. But I don't have the data. I don't know if you,
There's like 200 and something.
yes, sir.
Well, for example, your previous.
We would give a bump when they passed the test, but it was a dollar amount, not a percentage.
Would anybody like to separate those two items to vote on, or do you want to leave them together?
I don't have any trouble
Okay.
leaving them
Divide the
together.
question.
All right. Do I have a motion to, yes,
I
sir.
move that we divide the questions.
Oh, you did move that. I'm sorry.
And accept those two items from the rest. Vote on those individually.
Do I have a second for that? I will second it. All right. So then let's address, update section 7.0A41. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got a motion second. We didn't vote. So all those in favor of separating those items, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So that motion passes. So now let's address 7.0A41 on page 29.
F. It's an F, not a 1.
Oh, it sure is. You know what? That's when, it is an F. Look at that. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to accept that policy change?
I make a motion to accept the amendment as provided.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Second with Rich. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. So we have update section 7.0. Let me put on my glasses. A8 on page 2930. Do I have a motion to accept that?
I would like, I'll make this as a motion and we can discuss it if it gets seconded, but I would suggest that we give half of the advantage once they pass the test and the other half when they receive their certification.
I'll second it.
Second discussion, I'm going to lean toward, wait till the certificate. That's what makes it official. That's what they're earning, what the state issues. It may be some time involved, but maybe there's a reason the state's doing that. I don't know. And again, I'm always concerned with employee morale, but I'm also concerned with expense related. And I see 5% of salary as a huge bump. We normally don't even give raises of 5%. So anyway, that's my comment on it. Yes, sir.
Chair, I would comment that I like Mr. Diot's proposal. It's clear they've achieved the knowledge set, and what we're really talking about is their practical experiences exercising that knowledge set. I like Mr. Diot's proposal, and I would support that.
I would add to that. It's just, I'm thinking on the fly here. Now I'm starting to understand this. I think it's good to put some incentive for passing the tests and getting it done. I think the time spent doing the job is important. And so if that's lagging, I think both of them get an incentive. And also I think it'll probably help with retention.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So I do want to hear from Mr. Bobbitt. He's hearing this for the first time. So if you have any thoughts on it.
And if I could just add one thing here, this is in order to have, and I may be wrong on this, in order to have the position we're talking about, this is a required certification.
Yes, sir.
So it's required to be there or not, as far as being incentivized. They took the position knowing I have to get the certification. If I want to keep my position, I'm motivated to get that certificate. So just to comment.
But I think that's a good balance point, Mr. Young, with your position. Brad, do you remember which department or who brought this?
Mr. Durham.
Mr. Durham, did you want to elaborate before?
Sure.
Mr. Durham, if you go ahead and, you don't need to go to the speaker, at least step forward. I'm gonna make him get painful in his knees and all that.
Well, really upon further reflection, I kind of like Mr. Diaz's recommendation as well. But the big picture, we're trying to retain good employees. We're trying to have the best employees for the public that we serve. With that being said, if we have a go-getter that goes out there and passes this test and takes all of the courses and passes 4 tests and does everything they're supposed to do in 3 years, we want to reward that go-getter. 5% is not very much. On a $50,000, $60,000 salary, $3,000, $2,500.
So, Mr. Durham, the question or the clarification, I want to make sure this is clear to everybody. This is aside from any merit type raises they would get annually.
Correct.
So there is other possibilities for these go-getters.
Correct. But this is a one time in a career that we're talking about here. This doesn't happen multiple times.
I have a question. The retention part is what really grabs me, because what's to prevent them from getting the 5% and then leaving?
Well, how about what's to prevent them from us training them and taking paying for all their tests and going to a district that gives them 5% immediately upon there.
And that's the gamble.
And they do, and we have lost people to other prison districts.
But I like the 2.5% only because we are rewarding them
Yes,
in advance. You know, we could wait the 5 years. We're saying, no, we're going to go ahead and reward you in advance. But once you complete that time in training that requires, and I'm very much aware of the professional engineering status and all that, having worked for the Corps of Engineers. I think it's important, but I also think that if they're really a go-getter, then they're going to be happy with the 2.5%, and then the final, they'll get another pay hike, you know? And you know what? If their pay is higher and they get the 2% on top of that, that's even,
it comes back. Yes.
mathematically,
Any other questions?
more advantage.
Yeah, just specifically, how much time is required? Is there a stated statutory time that they have to be in place doing relevant work to get that certification?
Well, it actually varies. 5 years is the baseline. Someone like myself that came in as a real estate major, 21 years in the private sector, multiple licenses under different Texas agencies, they waived 4.5 of my 5 years because I was already a real deal.
All right, that's all I have.
So the one other comment I'll make is, as we're talking about retention for key employees within the group, maybe it's worthwhile that we review the merit pay increase policies that TAT has at some point in the future to make sure that we are properly compensating people for work.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Matthew. So we have a motion on the floor by Rich, and it was seconded that, and I'm going to just repeat it this way, that upon completion of the test and proof of that, there'd be a 2.5% increase. Upon receiving the actual certification, at that point, there'd be an additional 2.5% of salary increase. Is that correct, Rich?
That's fine.
Okay, on the second.
That was my second.
Yeah, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, I'm going to go down as an opposition in this case. I just want my name in the record, so. All right. So the motion passes. What else we got? Item 7D.
That's what we just
No, we
did.
just did. Yeah, I got an extra page in here. Okay, item 7E. This is our last. No. Okay. Review, discuss, and action on ballot of upcoming board directors general election. This is the reason we actually called this meeting. So all this other stuff was not for the called meeting. This is the one item we called for. So this is so we need to do. So again, I'm going to turn over to you, Mr. Chief Appraiser.
Yes, sir. Brad's been working with the election office to get a ballot. We did a drawing earlier this week, Monday. It's been a long week.
Was that Monday?
Yes.
You're kidding.
And so on the next page, we have the ballot language and the candidates in the order that they were drawn. So this is what we are sending to the county election office from the put on the ballot.
So I make a motion.
You go ahead and make the motion.
Okay, I move we approve the ballot as presented at the meeting today so that the TAD staff can deliver it to the Tarrant County Election Administration on or before March 7th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Rich seconds. All right. I do have a comment. I just want to comment on, this is new for all of us. Talked with the county judge. She called me up. He's asking questions. We met with him. We talked about those issues. I've talked with his administrator that's kind of overseeing it. And one of the things says that she wanted to pass on that Brad did an excellent job of working with them on that. And I know there's a lot of backup. We had all the translations involved. So there's a whole lot of work that's gone into this, much less the possible $300,000 we're going to incur. But again, I want to compliment staff for all the work that was done on it and done so professionally and so well. And to get the kudos from the county, which is the overseer of this election, I think that's a great deal. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sorry.
I'm chief. That's good.
It's all
Chief of
good.
the board.
So just for clarity, this action is also approving the $300,000, or is that a separate?
No.
It's already been approved.
Okay, we've already done that.
We'll get it.
Well,
We haven't received the contract yet.
Okay, so that's coming.
Oh, yeah, it's not a choice.
And so just wanted to state for the record, this was a state mandate, and we will be finding the money, but it wasn't something that was originally budgeted for.
Any other comment? All right, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? No, the motion passes. All right, last item. I want to note that it's 9:33.
Good job.
Okay. Well, it's not over yet. So item F, deliberate and act on possible revisions to the TAD Board of Directors Policy Manual. Okay, let me give you a little oversight on this. In your notebook, there are two versions of changes to the Board of Directors Policy Manual. We actually met, we talked about what all was going to go into the packet. The pack was like 100 pages long because all the revisions. We took it down to two versions. Since the subjects came up, we've had at least 4 different versions of changes sent to Mr. Tepper for review. Out of simplicity, Mr. Tepper took 3 sets of changes and incorporated them into one document. So that represents one of the documents you have. The second set of changes was submitted as a total rewrite of the entire manual, and it's impossible to present you with a red line version of those changes because it's just total rewrite, it's total different look to it, et cetera. A lot of great work was done into that, but it is what that is. Okay, I want to remind everyone that we're governed by the state of Texas. We're not governed by ourselves. The Texas Controller issues the Appraisal District's Director Manual. I know I tend to forget about that. I go look at this one because it's easy, but we are governed by the Appraisal District's Director's Manual issued by the State Comptroller. This document, it's that document that governs this board. The Board of Directors Policy Manual is intended to just personalize how we wish to run our meetings. And so it's added, it can't conflict with that other manual. It's just to add to run this actual meeting. Could our manual be improved? Yes. But in my opinion, it should not be changed on the basis of prior board leadership and personalities. We're a new board. We've got new administration. We're going forward. I'm not saying there shouldn't be changes, but I wouldn't want to make changes because of the way someone did it in the past. But whatever. Between rebuilding our public image, rebuilding our IT systems, launching new tools for our internal and external end users, I believe we got a lot bigger fish to fry than spending time reworking this policy manual. And when you look at all these changes, when it was just Gary's initial changes, I think that was attackable. Now it's gotten so in depth, that's my concern. I would like to see this subject table into a future time. So that's my comment, just simply my comments. Yes, sir, Rich.
If I can be recognized for a motion, I would like to move that we accept the changes in the first document, not to dismiss the second document, but just get these changes made for now because, well, let me make that motion, see if it gets seconded.
It's got a mistake in it.
Okay.
It's already got mistakes in it.
What,
I have them right here.
is it typo mistakes or is it policy mistakes?
It's policy mistakes.
Good.
And I've already
Okay.
spoken to Sharon.
Mr. Chairman, I think the motion is made. If there's a second, we can discuss. Second.
Okay. So a motion, second, discussion is that there's, yes, sir, Gary.
I guess I have a question. I'm looking at my packet. I don't see a second policy.
There's a colored page to divide one, so that we can refer to them easily. So when you get to the yellow page, after the yellow page starts the second.
Yellow page? I guess I'm colorblind.
Is it in here? Whatever, yeah.
Pardon?
Okay. Well, moving along the same comments that Mr. Dion made, I'm trying to prove this, and one of the things that I caught in here was related to approving of our starting time. It says 9 a.m. policy, and yet we're starting at 8 a.m. And honestly, I'm not willing to argue one way or the other. I just want to get it straight. And,
It's a called meeting.
well, every meeting's been at 8 o'clock this year, and I can tell you that for a fact, because I was up at 3 a.m.
Yes.
one time to get to the 8 a.m. meeting. So,
That'll teach you to fly far away.
yeah, I know.
So
So that's just my question.
So if I could comment on that real quick.
Yeah.
First meeting in January was at 9 o'clock, as I best recall. The second meeting was at 8 o'clock because we had the training that y'all were not able to coordinate. So I knew had the length of the meeting. That's why I called it for 8 a.m. This meeting and the next meeting are called meetings. And so, yes, I'm calling them at 8 a.m. But no, policy says 9 a.m. unless we change that or there's a special reason to change it. That is what it is. Again, I'm a fan of the 8 a.m. as you all know. But one of the things I realize, we can look at the cost different ways, but there's a half a dozen people from the staff that has to be here. Most of it can be done the night before the normal hours end. Julia does have to come in early. She can also receive compensatory time for that, but I'm trying to eliminate costs. I'm trying to lower that. I'm also trying to be aware of the public. If the public can't get here, we don't start till 9. That puts them later into the rest of their day as well. They may work, may not, but that means they're taking off their time. So that's my concern about 8 a.m. versus 9 a.m., but that's probably not the main issue right now.
The 9 a.m.
If I could say, I think there's a little flexibility in this language, though. It doesn't say we must meet. It says we ordinarily, it's a guideline. Every taxing entity that I've been to, and in my business, I'm at taxing units quite a bit. And they may start 30 minutes later. They might start a couple hours later. It is routine, even though their normal meeting time is mentioned at a certain time, like 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. So I think this is sufficiently flexible for a situation the way it is written. Except maybe we have Central Standard Time for travelers. All right.
But I understand, Mr. Dion, what you're saying about the ordinarily. But quite frankly, I look dumb when a member of the public calls me up and says, "What time is your board meeting?" I don't know. It may be 9, it may be 8, depends on whether it's called, maybe if it's not. I think that adds to a lot of confusion. We ought to be consistent on our times, whether it's a call meeting, whether it's a special meeting, whatever it is. Because I think it just confuses people. And every single month, I get that call since I've been reelected to the board, but I got that when I was on the board last time, every month. You know, what time is the meeting this month? So I would like to be consistent as possible. If we have to call a special meeting, specify the time, but just leave it at a certain time for everything and not bounce back and forth. I just think it creates a hardship to the public. That's just my opinion, whatever it's worth.
So for clarity, Gary, you would be okay with that being changed to 8 a.m. and doing all the meetings at 8 a.m. or at 9 and doing all the meetings at 9?
Yeah, 8 or 9, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you're talking about preferences, I prefer 9, but if, you know, we have to call 8 just to be consistent, I'd be happy with that. I just want to get consistent.
8:30?
I would amend my motion to make instead of 9 o'clock, 8 a.m. With that exception, but everything else I would read the same.
Gary, do you accept that? I think you're the second for the motion. Do you
I
accept?
was?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. 8 a.m. is fine, I guess. Ms. Penny, what about your input on that? Because I know.
I would like it to be at 9, and I like it to be at 9. I mean, you're saying it's a hardship to the public to be 9, but I don't agree with that because there's traffic that they have to face. There's the staff also that we need to consider. So I'm opposed to changing it to 8.
I was going to advocate for 7 to move everybody before the.
Make it even worse.
If I could go to another item, so we're looking at item 3, operation of the board of directors on this version. Right below, there's a line struck out in red but then go down to the third paragraph down, or the next to the last paragraph. And it's the second to the last sentence, or on the third line. It says, in addition, any board member may place an item on the agenda by sending written notification of their desire to have it placed on the agenda, etc. So the change from this is that currently it takes 2 board members to approve an addition to the agenda. My concern is if the person, number one, we're going to go to 9 voting members and come July. That is a lot of opportunity for, if you will, personal agendas or what they may think is important, but may not be as important to the focus of that particular meeting, et cetera. If a person can get a second to get it on the agenda, at least they'll know they'll probably have a second to move on it in the meeting itself. But if any of us can just say, oh, I want this on the agenda, I want this on the agenda, and now we're up to 9 voting members, I just see that as a major challenge of running the agenda. It's a challenge now to keep the agenda concise and to the point, et cetera. Then our discussions on those items, this is a great organization, great board. We do discuss these items. We don't accept things just because they're on the page. We've taken more things off of consent agenda than any other organization I've ever been on. As a matter of fact, it's so rare for it to be moved from the consent agenda. But I like that. I like that we're questioning, we're asking the questions, we're digging deeper, et cetera. But again, it only takes one, any board member can do it. That is a lot of opportunity to expand the agenda that I think may or may not be necessary. If they get a second board member to agree with them, then they know they'll have a second, most likely at the meeting itself. So that's my comment on that one. I would like that left as it was, 2 voting members.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I'm surprised actually that wasn't redlined.
Yeah, I was too. I had to search for it just then. And that's my concern about this old documents. Quite frankly, there's been so many versions, and although this did get sent to us, there was a lot of things I had to do, and so my bad, I have not studied these as I should have. But did you finish your point? I'm sorry, because I interrupted.
So that was surprising with redline. I will say, I don't want an excessively high bar to bring an item to the agenda. I also don't want an excessively low bar to bring an item to the agenda. I have high confidence in everybody that sits at this dais with me. But for future boards, there's opportunity for shenanigans. and of a nature exact opposite of what we saw in the past. I tend to agree with Chairman that 2 is a low bar, and it's necessary to progress the discussion anyway to have that second. A discussion amongst 2 trustees is not a quorum or walking quorum related issue. So I think it's possible to do that, and I would prefer that, but I will go with whatever the majority of the board decides.
Rich, would you be willing to change your motion to take that back?
I have a discussion part of this thing too.
Yes, ma'am.
If you go on to where it has officers of the board in this packet,
And what,
there's a mistake.
okay, well, I'll tell you what, we're on one subject, so we'll get to that one, okay?
Well, I thought we were passing this. He made a motion to accept this.
I'm asking him to make, if he would accept the change of striking the one person.
Yes, I'll do that, but let me say this, in my mind, I'm imagining a rabble rouser being elected to the board. He puts 28 agendas on. And when that happens, I make a motion that we table all of these items and just dispose of them. And that can happen. In the last board, I really wanted to talk about something in executive session. I was shut down. So consultation with attorneys, et cetera, I went as far as I could in an open meeting on those issues.
Well, in actually, on that example, you actually had a second, and that chairman chose to not do it.
No, this was.
Oh, it's a different.
This is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Because I did experience it with you before.
Yeah, and there were 2 members then, and we had a big argument about it. I'm thinking this isn't right. So that's why I posed the law doesn't confer super board member status to the chair.
Right.
For example.
So
You wouldn't do that anyway, but.
by the same token, if it's 1, the chair could still do what you just said if they choose to not follow the policy.
Yeah.
So the policy of 1 versus 2, I don't think that's why I say we can't base it on prior personalities or prior leadership. We need to base it going forward on what we expect to be in this role or any role.
We could make one additional point with regard to those multiple items. For each of those items that makes it onto the agenda, there's staff and legal time to properly brief those. And so I want to make sure that's considered as well.
Okay. No, I'm happy amending the motion. I hope the second would follow me on that. To leave that on.
Gary, would you follow second?
Did I make a second on that hand?
Wait a minute. Who made the second?
We're still working off the original motion.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so the question now is there an amendment that would be accepted to Mr. Diot's original motion? Is that the question?
So that we read any 2 board members.
Right, right. My only concern is that, and I hear what you said, Mr. Pointe, about we don't need to go back historically, though I respectfully disagree about that, because that sword is 2-edged. Mr. Diot just said, I'm sure the current chair would not do something like that. Well, moving forward, chances are you're not going to be the chair forever.
It's a good chance.
Well, I'm just saying, just because of the term limits and all that kind of stuff on the board itself. So then we got to revisit it again and change it because of the tone of the chair. Now I will say this. In the past, I believe board members had their own little world that they lived in and were, to quote a sage, intelligent individual, for a coffee and donuts board, didn't really want to pay any attention to anything and didn't want to listen from other members of the board. And that basically the chair and the chief appraiser were the only 2 that put any items on the agenda. That was an inherent problem. with you as the current chair, I don't see it as a problem. But if you don't make it through next year or choose not to or whatever, what happens? We got to come back and revisit it again. So that's my point of, again, I'm not going to fight this thing to the end, but we don't know what we have going forward. We may have grandstanders. Who knows? Could we amend it then? But that's targeting, sort of like in football, we don't want to do targeting. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's a history amount that does play into this, and then also going forward. That's why, and I'll just take credit for this. I'm the one who put it in there. But let me also say this, because it's important. When I put this together, it was just to get the board off of dead center as it relates to policy and procedures. There's nothing in here that I can't live with, either way. So moving forward, it's going to be the board's desire. I'll leave it at that.
So did you accept his?
Well, yeah, what's the bottom line?
Yeah. No, but I appreciate what you said.
I think.
Well, what's it? Because I need to call on Julie next.
Okay, yes, I'll accept.
Okay, so we just said to change. Julie?
I just wanted to point out that what's under consideration says that once, that any two board members may place an item on the agenda by sending written notification of their desire to have an item placed on the agenda to the chair and the chief, and the chair does not have the authority to decline any such request. So at this point, it would just be a math formula. Two people written, it happens.
So the motion is amended to say two people,
He just accepted the second.
and he just accepted the second. So that's where we are.
Alan?
I think Gary makes a very good point, and I was just looking through the document, and I'm not finding it. But we should have a policy in place for the board to remove an officer that's not performing according to the documents. Not that we want to get rid of events, but
No, it's fine.
There's probably a remedy for that in the other board manual, the comptroller's version, the orange one that I sent you guys for your first board.
Okay. Thank you.
Which does reflect the state property tax credit language.
Okay, so Gloria, it's a correction.
Yeah, I have two things.
Get us to the right page, please.
It's
Can I
the
make
very,
a comment about that, just to interrupt you? Can we get these things, these pages numbered? This is ridiculous. I have to go through, well, it's on this, well, I mean, it would be so nice if we could just say page 2, page 3, page whatever.
So Julie,
So I'm gonna,
just a second, Julie.
You guys passed, I cannot alter. So if you'll please put that as a friendly amendment in here.
that is the friendly amendment. I meant to mention it earlier myself, so
Okay.
I'm assuming Gary seconds.
Yeah. So that's part of the motion too now.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Gloria.
that's why I was just listing what it is. It's under the officers of the board.
so what number is that?
There is no number.
Oh,
It's on the first page. There's
first page.
under item number 2, composition of the board of directors, and then a whole bunch of red stuff, and
Yeah.
officers of the board.
If you go down to the portion that says, okay, and that's just for this document I'm addressing right now, says is red line, the board elects a chair and a secretary at its first meeting each calendar year. But then it goes on to say to fill a vacancy in the position of chair of secretary. And then it addresses the chair's responsibilities. It should only read the position of the chair.
So the of secretary is what you're saying is an error.
Yes, because it doesn't apply to the
Is that
secretary.
or secretary? Is that a typo?
No,
It says of.
yes, it should say or secretary.
Yeah, because the duties of the chair, and then behind it are the duties of the secretary on the next page.
I agree.
So just change the word to or.
Okay.
I think the motion is amended and I think seconded.
Yes, sir. Okay,
So that-
thank you.
Okay.
What's
Now,
next?
now the other thing is, I wanna take full responsibility for the total rewrite of the manual. I did it. I spent one weekend going through the whole document, the existing one. Nothing that is in this existing one that we're looking at now was removed from the second one. All I did was enhance it. And I'll tell you, one of the big reasons was, how many of you have a clue on when we're supposed to do what on this board? Do you know in January what we're supposed to do, in February what we're supposed to do? And you have, okay, so you two may know.
Mhm.
nobody else knows. So I created a calendar with the help of staff. That's one of the items that's in this new manual. And I have one for each one of you to have, even if you don't accept that manual. Here's the calendar so that you can see what we're responsible for. I'm gonna take one of you, pass it down. That was one of the big missing things. And then I asked Matthew to review it because I'm not an attorney. And he went through and he quoted all the Texas applicable codes that applied to that manual. So they're referenced as well on those items. What you just addressed about removing someone is in the new manual that I created. I just took what was existing on the manual and gave it some more words. Plus, I took some other items that I went through some appraisal districts across the state. I did a lot of research and I spent a whole weekend physically typing this thing up myself. I didn't want to give that to Matthew because we have to pay him for those hours.
Mhm.
And so I volunteered my time. There is nothing in there except Matthew did change the time to 8 a.m. I want it back to 9 again. But if you all had the time to have reviewed it, you would have seen all I did was enhance everything. Everything that has been said now is in that new manual. I didn't change the format. It's the same.
All right. So I want to say kudos to you for that work. I mean, that's incredible. And particularly this line, I know what we're supposed to do. I'm on breaches to go. This is great. This can be a document outside the manual. Dates and times and deadlines could change depending on state legislator, et cetera. But I do think, Julie, it'd be great if each year we put out a fresh calendar of what we have on the calendar.
And
Yes.
the board calendar that I give you at the beginning of the year does have some legal requirements for the legislature about the budget, things like that. At the bottom, asterisks that match up with the meetings.
Well, this also includes even the appraisal that we have to do on the chief appraiser. When do we do that? When's his midterm performance review? All of that is in this document. In addition,
So it doesn't have, or does it have our appointment of the appraisal board?
yes, it's on there.
It's on there. Okay.
It's on there.
Excellent.
I went through staff to try and gather all the information. The other thing was I didn't know, as a new board member, I came in not knowing what the contract was for the appraiser, the chief appraiser. I had none of that knowledge. So my manual also includes giving an orientation by the chair or one of the other board members to the new members so that they don't come in blind, so to speak. So they know what the requirements are for them and have this information. I just tried to enhance it. So as a new board member, what I was seeing was lacking, and I included those items on there. And when we had our very first meeting, there was someone who recommended that we look at other areas that our manual was lacking in. And I felt those were items that were lacking. So I included them in
Thank you.
in my version of it. But my version did not exclude anything that was already in this.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comment on this, the current one we've got a motion on?
Well, I'm confused as to which one we're.
We're on the
One that has red line.
we're on the one with the red lines, which is the one we've been addressing.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes, that's what we're on.
Okay,
Yes,
so,
Julie.
I don't have clarification as to where we landed on 8 or 9. I don't have a friendly amendment accepted on the time.
It was an 8.
If you're amending.
The minute was to 8 o'clock.
I don't have a second. I don't have a first and second.
Gary seconded.
Y'all accepted that?
Yes,
Okay.
Gary, you accepted?
he did. No, it ain't been approved, but it's,
Just trying to figure out what we're voting on.
A legitimate first and motion and second that's applied. And Ms. Pena, clearly have done a lot of work. We've been looking at some of these changes, Mr. Lasada and I in particular have been looking at some of these changes for a long time. And what I'm suggesting isn't that we discount your work, because I think we should talk about these things. And I've gone through everything that you wrote. But I see a lot of discussion on some of those things. And so I'd like to, and my motion is based on this, that we accept these changes as friendly amended through the whole process here, and establish this with page numbers and everything. And then at another meeting, we can break open some of those other issues. So that's where I'm going, just to get something in effect, taking care of some of the problems that we've had before. But like I said, I think the calendar is an appropriate thing to put in the manual just for information purposes. Even if it's not regulatory in any way, it's just informational, that's great. That's a place to put it, good place to put it. So, but I'd like to take that up with another meeting.
All right, is there any further discussion on this motion? Yes, sir.
I have a clarification question because I'm a little surprised at some of these things. Under compensation, why was it scratched that says members receive no compensation for service on the board? They are entitled to reimbursement for actual necessary expenses incurred in the performance of their duties as provided by the district's budget. Why was that scratched? Who scratched that?
I have no idea.
I don't see why that should be taken out.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, Julie.
Sure, who scratched it, but there is a state statute that allows you all to be reimbursed for actual and necessary expenses. So the red line, second sentence is actual state statute.
So actually, I'll take responsibility. I did ask weeks ago, Matthew, to note anything that was just repeating what was in the state policy manual. So I guess I'm the one responsible for that change. So it's already, so again, that's what we got to keep in mind. The state is who directs us as to how we're operating. It's that manual. This is really designed to help us through our meetings and how we want to run our meetings. But we're not setting policy. We're not setting, we can't vote, oh, we're going to start getting paid $100 a meeting. So, and not that you're saying it, but that's what I'm saying. I want to keep the manual simple because it's what it's designed to be, is simple to move us through the meetings. Any other comments?
I call the question.
Call the question. All right. So we have a motion to accept this draft with the red lines on it. I'm going to refer to it that way. We've made a couple of changes that were friendly amendments to the motion, and they were seconded. So I call for a vote. All those in favor of this manual, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have one opposition, and the motion passes. All right, thank
The
you.
only reason I voted no is because I want the meeting at 9.
Hey, I hear you. I voted no on something just because it hurt my feelings, but no, it didn't hurt your feelings. All right. Whoops.
Just to recap, Julie, did you go over the changes that we're making to the red line?
We had friendly amendments to change 9 to 8 a.m., to change any board members to 2 board members, and to add page numbers and to change the word "or" between the chair.
That's all.
Regarding to the exact draft, I don't mean entitled to this draft, or we was that specific enough. I don't think that's specific.
Could you speak up, please?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
I think we referenced the draft as this draft, which makes it very difficult to, we have 2 of them.
Well, give me a name for the draft and we'll name it that.
He called it the red line
I
draft.
did call it the red line draft.
And I marked it as
Thank
the
you.
first one in the packet, but I can also add the red line.
Yeah.
And Julie, I think in the binder, it's copy 1 and copy 2.
Yes.
Let me catch up here.
Future meetings.
All right.
You're calling Gabe.
Yep.
Did you get a copy of the calendar? I think I passed one down.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have a meeting scheduled, a call right now for
April.
sooner than May 10th.
Yes. So let me address that. So let me go ahead and mention, if there's any future agenda items, please send those to me and the chief appraiser. We'll look to have those added to the agenda. It says the next meeting, you've all been notified that we have a called meeting to start our discussion of the 2025 budget on Friday, April 5th. We're going to hold off on posting that. So in case we have something comes up, chief appraiser gets sick, whatever. No, that's only Matthew that gets sick. But anyway, so we're just not going to post it. Now, the other thing is that came to my attention is we can have budget meetings without making it a open meeting. And that's all I really want to discuss in this meeting. But so we'll come back and address it. Just if you'll have April 5th on your calendar, but we may decide if there's a change in how we, whether it's a call meeting or it's a budget meeting or what the case may be.
Well, just so, because you said we don't have to have an open meeting, we do have to have an open meeting.
Open, public, yes, correct.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Then we have our next standard meeting, we kind of refer to these as standard and call, is Friday, May 10th, 2024. I want to make a noted for everyone's sake. Number one, it's about 10:07, even with the board manual discussion. And for the first time since I've been on this board, there was no executive session. How about that? Let's give ourselves a round of applause. But unless I hear otherwise, I will call this meeting for adjournment.
I'll make that motion. Can you restate when our next meeting is?
Our next meeting is Friday, May 10th, 2024. Regular meeting, standard meeting.
Can you specify the other meeting as
We
well?
plan to have a call meeting on April 5th because it's not legally posted. We have to post it 72 hours prior, and we don't have an agenda finalized. We're not ready to finalize an agenda, so we list the one we know is happening next. But just for our
So-
own sake.
That's why I'm asking you to put on your calendars, but we got a few decisions to make before then.
Okay. Very good. I move to be adjourned.
All right, so
Second,
Actually,
I'm sorry.
I'm not seconding that. I just have a question going forward, and it's not changing anything, but we have a cover sheet for the board policy manual, and I would like, through you, Ms. Puente, direct staff to do another cover sheet and say board policy manual revised. You can put today's date or whatever, but you can put,
I think we should reference, we're updating the prior one as of this date or something like that. Yes, I agree totally.
and get that out to the board numbered, so we have something to go by.
Yeah, absolutely.
well, it's
That-
I know
online,
Julie.
online, it's fine.
When we update it, we will put the cover sheet back on. It will say the last time that it was changed and then this most current change, and it will have the number.
Will you send it to the board?
I can send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be great.
All right.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. We have a,
Second is motion.
well, actually, Gloria already seconded.
Oh,
I'm gonna take that. And we are adjourned at 10:08.